I think they were fully programmed to be slaves. And for one to tell the one that was living with the colonel, the military colonel for 3 years, at some point said that he wanted to see the ocean, shows that there was a graphic shift in the mind state of the Greys. And again, this is throughout their Borg network. Here we have a crop circle. This was in 2002. It of course shows a ominous looking gray alien with what looks like a CD that actually did have binary code on it. If you do the code, it says, "Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe there is good out there. We oppose deception, closing conduit." And again, that was from August 15, 2002. That definitely correlates with John Lear's statements, and who says that in 1979, apparently there was some type of clash. In 1983, MJ-12 realized that they had made a dangerous mistake and realized that they were in deep trouble. They had made a deal with these people and it had not worked out. Now the question was what to do. This was a quote from John Lear. "It is clear that the secret black ops, the CIA, the branch of the government that has been working directly and extensively with the gray aliens since at least the 50s, have been deceived. Dwight Eisenhower is rumored to have met with both the representation of the Pleiadian and the Greys, which resulted in a partnership with the Greys." And I will talk more about this later. The partnership, whether initiated by Eisenhower and or otherwise, is the subject of the warning in the crop circle, the Great Deception, as described by John Lear. And it is literally an alien invasion that has been taking place for decades. Though the invasion began from outside of the Earth, the invasion has been coming from within the Earth for decades, from breeding programs to infecting the planet and its inhabitants with technologies and perspectives. They are here, and they have been here, and they have been breeding here, and now the invaders are coming from within. I ask you to look no further than the Earth alien human timeline. The timeline reveals the invasion. Their tactics, their techniques, their motives, their desires, everything is seen through their interactions throughout history. Angels, demons, reptile men, goblins, succubus, gnomes, and fairies, and more. Stories of sightings, the things that go bump in the night, all have become the stuff of legends, myths, philosophies, and religions around the world. The oldest stories and religions on the planet, even Christianity, all center around advanced, multidimensional, godlike beings and their interactions with mankind throughout history. From cavemen drawings to ancient Egypt to the Hopi, all believed and venerated these ET people as gods, star brothers, the Nazca Lines, Moses, who was followed by pillars of light that led the Ark of the Covenant, Alexander the Great, who believed that he was being aided by gods in the form of light in the sky. Native Americans venerated ET as gods and star brothers. The Dogon tribe venerated ET as gods and their star brothers. Christopher Columbus believed he was being led by the lights. From the 1940s, we can see a graphic escalation in contacts and an official engagement of the UFOs into military action. A war began with many sightings that were occurring, crashes beginning in 1941. Well, not beginning in 1941, but most famously beginning in 1941. The Battle of Los Angeles in 1942, Foo Fighters in the early 40s, throughout World War II, the ghosts, rockets, numerous UFOs sighted over Scandinavia, causing the Swedish defense staff to express concern. In the 1947 Maury Island incident, Harold Dahl reported that his dog was killed and his son was injured by debris when they encountered 4 to 6 flying donut-shaped objects. He also claimed that a witness was subsequently threatened by the Men in Black. Of course, we have the Roswell incident in 1948. Great fireballs objects were reported over several United States military bases, and an official investigation followed. And those were just, testing some grounds and engaging some military sites, but pretty clearly. And definitely caused concern to both Scandinavia, Sweden, and the United States. And from there, and through that time, we have many things happening in the world, including World War II. and Hitler and Nazi Germany rising up. World War II was considered to be from 1939 to 1945. And I believe that aspects of Hitler's life, such as his technology, his computing systems, his code systems, the Thule Society itself, Heinrich Himmler's occult practices, Hitler's use of propaganda and genocide, all show that Hitler was working with inhuman aliens. How did one small country combine with two other small countries, Japan and Italy, almost take over the entire world? Technology and known occult practices is how. Inhuman and otherworldly ways of accessing information. One can call Hitler possessed with demons and working with demons, but it might be far more accurate to realize that the influence that was behind him was inhuman beings and forces, alien beings. Hitler was very close to his female psychic mediums known as the Vril Society, and they began in 1917. And it is thought that they gave birth to the Thule Society, which was a group of intellectuals and investors that all had interest in occult practices and aliens. It is also thought that the Thule Society gave birth to the National Socialist Party itself, the Nazi Party itself, the SS, the Black Sun, and the Creole Society. And it is the reason for the Nazi obsession with the occult practices. So it began with the Vril, and that's the line of succession and obsession with the occult practices and contacting spirit beings and ET. It is also thought that the Thule was the beginning of the German UFO development. They believe that they were in contact with Anunnaki, what they called Anunnaki, and as well as other beings outside of the Earth and inside of the Earth. It is thought that the Vril Society created the first UFOs in 1934, and they were propelled by anti-gravity effects. I believe that these were, and it is very likely that they were, the famed Foo Fighters that were seen later in World War II. They are said to be saucer-shaped, 16 foot across, and they changed color depending on how much power they were using. The Allies did believe that the Foo Fighters were special German aircrafts. By 1939, what they called Vril-powered saucers were 65 foot in diameter, the Honolulu 1 and 2, and they distinctly resemble the crafts that abducted Barney and Betty Hill in 1961. This would explain why Barney and Betty said that the human men inside of the craft appeared to be Nazis. Designs that are said to have come from the Nazis are the most common saucers ever seen since. If the Nazis had anti-gravity technology as described as the Nazi Bell, they would have discovered the keys to free energy and overwhelming weaponry. And it is commonly said, history writes, that the war ended before Hitler could start using his advanced technology, before he could really get it manufactured and implemented into the battlefield. So Hitler used his psychic mediums to contact ET and inner Earth beings, Agartha and Shambhala. It is likely and probable that Nazi scientists had uncovered the reality of the inner Earth reptiles, as well as had contact and trade with the Dracos through the Greys. The Nazis' explorations were everywhere. Their occult practices and their explorations of everything they could get their hands on, the strangest, craziest, weirdest science was what they tried to specialize in. So it's no doubt that they tried, and no doubt that they were accomplished in many things that they were rumored to have done. Hitler was working with the Dalai Lama himself, who called Hitler the King of the Aryans. Hitler was also working with the Vatican, of course. Hitler was building underground bunkers all over the world, including at the South Pole, likely to connect to inner Earth structures made by reptilian Anunnaki species. It is said that Hitler had contacted species of reptilians that had been in contact with Japanese leaders for centuries. This may explain the German-Japanese alliance. Alien contact may explain Hitler's brutally insane activities, technologies, prophecies, philosophies, and possessed mind state. Hermann Olgart, one of the German founders of rocketry, astronautics, and was later one of the Project Paperclip scientists, stated, "We were helped by beings from other worlds," end quote. I believe that the USSR and the USA's extreme desire for Nazi paperclip scientists shows that the two primary global powers at that time were desperate to know what the Nazi scientists knew. This also leads to the fact that World War II never ended, but because of the Project Paperclip and the USSR's equivalent, we were invaded by thousands of Nazis. several thousand Nazis directly into the heart and into the hearts of our governments, both our government and the Soviet Union's government. And this was the cause of World War III. And this is World War III. World War II never ended, so we can call this the continuation of World War II or World War III. But it's an information war, a propaganda war in the mind, a war that ends in the extermination of all humans deemed useless to a government ran by alien forces, and then the extermination of the rest of the Earth's life, as the alien forces that are trying to take over have no need or desire for any form of life as we know it or experience it. This brings us to the CIA, the covert takeover by the military-industrial complex that began in 1947. Well, it didn't really begin in 1947, but it's markedly related to these UFOs and the crashes at 1947 through the famous Roswell crash. 3 months after the crash, the Roswell crash, 3 months after, the CIA was formed. On September 18th, 1947, 73 years ago. Officially tasked with gathering, processing, and analyzing national security information from around the world, primarily through the use of human intelligence. The CIA-Nazi alliance, the covert takeover of the military-industrial complex, began with Project Paperclip, 1945 to 1959. The U.S.-Nazi alliance through Project Paperclip was a secret program of the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, largely carried out by special agents of the Army CIC, in which more than 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians, such as Werner Braun and his V-2 rocket team, were taken from Germany to the United States for U.S. government employment. Many were former members and some were former leaders of the Nazi parties. We're talking about men that were complicit or absolutely creating ways to commit genocide, actually participating in genocide. No two ways around it. And we brought them over here because they knew something. Officially, the primary purpose for Operation Paperclip was U.S. military advantage in the Soviet-American Cold War and the space race. The Soviet Union was more aggressive in forcibly recruiting more than 2,200 German scientists and specialists, a total of more than 6,000 people, including their family members, with Operation Oskalakofim during one night on October 22nd, 1946. In a secret directive circulated on September 3rd, 1946, President Truman officially approved Operation Paperclip and expanded it to include 1,000 German scientists under temporary limited military custody. The CIA was responsible for placing Project Paperclip scientists into the military-industrial complex, including hospitals, schools, and universities. The first wave included 700 propulsion scientists and 600 plus mine scientists. The US and Russia joined forces with the Nazi parties through the CIA Project Paperclip and their Russian equivalent projects. World War II never ended. Nazis still party. Well, actually, it's their babies. Well, they're all grown up and they're worldwide, especially in America. World War II is now World War III. The war is on the mind. The war is on TV. CIA programming, all we see, all we read. What would be worth partnering with Nazi mass murderers? Could it be Agartha, Shambhala, UFO technologies? Well, Admiral Byrd's South Pole expedition in 1947, just after the end of the war, after the treaties, he kind of explains that when he said he found Agartha, Shambhala, New Schwabenland, New Berlin, Base 211, these type of things. Admiral Byrd, his diary tells of meeting an Aryan race at the South Pole, and that he went into, you'll have to just read his diary, it's a long story, but he met this advanced race. They were able to show him that they were way more advanced than we are, and they gave him a message of peace, told him to stop using atomic weapons and fighting all the time, these type of things, or else it's going to lead to destruction. But point is that Admiral Byrd seems to have found the place that Adolf Hitler and the Nazis were protecting, and like I said, called New Schwabenland, New Berlin, and the beings that they were said to be in contact with. Now, these beings said they only contacted or had contact with the Nazi regime only to manipulate them out of using nuclear bombs. So it's very interesting. They are said to be a highly advanced species that lives in the inner Earth, and Hitler got some ideas from them and some technologies from them, likely, but it doesn't seem like they were really down with everything that Hitler was doing, but it's just a matter of they were trying to manipulate things as little as possible in order to halt an all-out nuclear war. But this goes on that, from Admiral Byrd, it brings me to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was the 32nd president of the United States.